Hey everyone, Catherine Mattice with Civility Partners. Today, our e-newsletter is tips for working remote, since many of us are doing so. And I thought I better follow my own advice and send a video as opposed to sending a written email. So here we are. Before I jump in, though, special thanks to Rebecca Del Secco. She's my wonderful team member who researched and put this article together, and I'm sort of stealing her thunder by now going with the video as opposed to sending out what she wrote. So just wanted to say thanks to her. All right, so tip number one is to be intentional. So here's the deal. When you're all at work, it's easy to have some impromptu meetings as you're heading over to the kitchen or run into someone in the lobby. And there's a lot to those impromptu meetings. A lot can happen. It's a great way to collaborate and build relationships. So now you just got to make sure you're more intentional about communication and how often you communicate, and don't take for granted those impromptu meetings. So now you just got to make sure you're being intentional about when and how you're communicating. Second tip is to communicate best practices to your team. So you want to make sure that everybody feels like they've been armed with some good tools. One best practice we've been seeing a lot of is to have a designated spot in your home to work, and that just sort of emulates getting up and going to work every day, versus if you're working in different places and all over the house, all at all different hours of the day. So I happen to have a home office, but maybe you have a designated spot at your dining room table, for example. Tip number three is to train your workforce on the virtual tools that you're using. So don't assume that just because you understand Zoom that everybody else on your team does. Maybe they don't understand it. And change and working from home is hard enough. You don't want to frustrate the situation by putting tools out there that are frustrating to learn. So really making sure your job aids and training tools are available and up to par so people feel comfortable. Tip number four is to remember the value of your face-to-face interaction. So really and truly, any time at all, rather than having a phone call, if you can use a web conferencing or video conferencing, it just really helps build relationships and ensure that you're maintaining some collaboration, because then you can see each other's faces and smiles. Tip number five is to create a virtual office atmosphere. So for example, one of our friends on St. Patrick's Day, everybody wore green. And so then the whole team was sort of on the camera in their green, just sort of, enjoying the fact that they were all dressed up for St. Patty's Day. My team and I are having a virtual happy hour tomorrow afternoon. So we're going to log on and have our glasses of wine over the camera and just kind of get to know each other a little bit more. Tip number six, keep your one-on-ones frequent and consistent. So really and truly, you should have one-on-ones every day with your team, every other day at most, and make sure they're at a scheduled time. So just to make sure that, they don't fall by the wayside as you get busy throughout your day. Tip number seven, take the time to get to know each other. So now's an opportunity to learn a little bit about each other's personal lives and build some rapport and relationships that way. So maybe sending each other pictures of your dogs, or taking pictures of your designated work area and sending it off to your team. Just doing things that we're all working from home. So do things that sort of open up your lives to each other so that you can get to know each other a little bit more. It's all about building relationships when you're virtual. Tip number 8 is to be understanding. A lot of us are working from home with kids. I am homeschooling my child right now because her school is closed, or we've got barking dogs or things happening around us. So just making sure that we're all being understanding and patient with each other is going to be key. So those are 8 tips for working remotely. I have a question for you. My first question is, what are you doing? What are some of your best practices? So we're going to post that on LinkedIn. Would love to hear your answers there on LinkedIn. And secondly, I'm curious if you're interested in having a virtual sort of mastermind group. So there's a lot of research and things you can read online about being remote, about managing your workforce through COVID, about the laws, all of that stuff. But I thought it might be nice to actually talk to people about it. So I'm thinking of putting together a little sort of mastermind group. Anybody who wants to join can. Thinking we might meet via Zoom every other week just to share tips and ask each other questions and present challenges and get advice from each other. So let me know if you're interested in that. I think that would be a cool way to help ensure that we're all feeling like we have what we need to get through this. So let us know. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next one.